fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh. Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
It's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
It's a whole new era of racing here on SimSpeed TV in association with Aussie Online Gaming. This is the Stock Car Racing Asia Pacific Series, debuting with the trucks here on SimSpeed TV. My name is Jay Kennedy. Alongside me for this series is Cameron Dance. Cam, it's been a long time since we've had a proper oval series here on SimSpeed. You and I both love oval racing. How good is it going to be to finally get one back again?
Oh, it's going to be really, really good. And with the partnership with Aussie Online Gaming as well, this is bound to be a really, really good series. So 100% looking forward to it. And we haven't actually seen a truck series on here for quite some time as well. So it's going to be really, really good to get these things back out on track and see what sort of racing they produce.
We've got an absolute stacked field as well. We've got drivers that are contending for World Championship positions, for Pro Series positions. We've got some of the best of Australian and a ring-in international that's quite good as well. Braden Boulos in here as well. But Matt Danson here. We've got Jason Martin registered for the series. Jason Markowski. And then some other very, very well-known names to us here at SimSpeed TV. More road-based drivers, likes of Byron Phillips and Caleb Hydes. Those guys are jumping in. Got drivers that were racing the truck series with Daniel Stevens and Justin Howe. And drivers that are real oval specialists. I don't like saying this, but Ryan Jones, he can actually steer a little bit in these things, and he's looking to potentially surprise a few people with his form, as he's right there at the front in qualifying, which is underway right now.
Certainly, there's a very, very different mix of drivers, all ones we've seen before racing in the oval scene, and some of these guys have raced in ANSCAR for a long, long time, so they've come over to have a go, and we're going to see how good they really are and see what they can put on tonight. But yeah, it's a very, very mixed up field, and certainly almost anybody's game as to who's going to end up winning this. Yeah,
100%, and we'll go through the grid very, very soon. But before we get into that, we'll sort of talk through what this series is about and the rules involved for this series. It's going to be a fixed setup series this season 1 that we're going to start with, and from that we will then look at what we're going to do with AOG. But this is a partnership between us here at SimSpeed and AOG to try and help promote oval racing, to boost participation in oval racing and show that oval racing is much, much more than just turning left, because so many people out there think that oval racing isn't anything more than just a couple of left-hand turns and that's it. There's so much strategy, there's so much involved in good oval racing. When you've got the best of the best out there doing it, it's a fantastic spectacle.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the common misconceptions you hear all the time with people talking about oval racing. They just say, oh, it's all about turning left. Well, not really when you actually look at and think about it, because there's that whole mental aspect of strategy, being smart, not doing anything silly, and just setting up moves and everything. It's a very, very long game and pays off a lot for those who are patient and work towards that long game. So it's going to be one of those series that obviously a lot of the guys are going to have fun in, but also we're going to really see who the smart drivers are, who are going to be the patient drivers, who know what they're doing on strategy and all that sort of stuff.
And qualifying is just concluding now. Braden Boulos has set the fastest time. So rules for the series: every driver has the ability to take one spare car, so if everyone does get involved in a wreck, which hopefully doesn't happen, we'll see them be able to get the spare car and go back out and run again. They're restricted to 3 sets of tyres, including the set that they start on. So if they do get involved in an incident early and do need to take tyres, they do need to conserve and strategize when they're going to take that last set of tyres, and do they hold out and hope that they catch a late caution and use it there, or do they have to use it at the midpoint of the race? The race distances will force at least one pit stop, so that does mean that strategy in regards to tyre conservation and tyre set management, very, very important as well. 10-round season, every race is around about 40 minutes in length if we stay green, but we will time certain the races to around 50 minutes to ensure that we don't have too late a night and aren't still here at 4 a.m. Trying to finish the races off. And also we're running the NASCAR point system, so it means that 1 point more for each position you gain means the championship will be very, very tight come the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So maximizing your point score, so making sure that you're getting consistent finishes towards the pointy end of the field is going to be really, really critical over this long, reasonably long at least, season of racing, and just making sure you're not getting involved in wrecks or anything like that.
On screen, joining us from Locked On Lads is Peter Wilkinson, and Wilco out there at the moment. I actually clicked the right button here. There we go. Out there running in the Camry. No, in the Tundra. It's not a Camry. So used to working on the truck on the Coke series that I'm working with the Cup cars. They're running the Tundra. Of course, there's the 3 types of truck if you are new to truck racing or oval racing. Of course, the Toyota Tundra, got the Chevy Silverado, and the Ford F-150. All 3 of those cars out there, or 3 trucks out there on track for tonight's racing as well. So we're going to see all of them out there. In regards to cautions, fingers crossed we don't see too many cautions, but of course we're no doubt we'll see at least one. Fingers crossed we don't though, but when we get into the next season, for season 2, we may even look at implementing stage racing, which will then add extra strategy into the races. Fingers crossed that will, if we do go that route, promote some interesting battles as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll really spice the racing up with those stages being involved, and it'll add to the strategy as well of whether you take tyres at the end of the stage or whether you try and split your tyres up in such a way that if a caution comes out during the stages, you put new tyres on then and then have an advantage later on. So it's really going to mix up things when we get to the later parts of the series and when we start to implement different stuff like that. But for the meantime, it's going to be really, really good racing, hopefully, and hopefully we don't see too many cautions tonight.
Yep, fingers crossed. Of course, tonight as well is really about testing out the rulebook, making sure that we're all under control, making sure you and I remove a bit of oval rust as well, and help promote and show that we've still got spots available in the series. If you are watching on YouTube, we have pinned a link to the entry form. The series is capped at 40 drivers. However, if drivers continually don't turn up, we're going to remove them and add drivers back in from the reserve list. And if you are in the list and you can't make it, let us know. Then a driver on the reserve list can get a call up and have a race as well. We want to see full grids and we want to see good participation, and allowing all different drivers to get in and showing that, you know, participation is great will definitely help oval racing as a whole in AusNZ. And fingers crossed, maybe one day we'll see a driver from Australia and New Zealand racing in the Coca-Cola iRacing series one day.
Yeah, it's been... I don't think there's actually ever been...
We've never had one.
Never had one. So there you go. Someone's going to be eventually a first timer at some point, whether it's someone from Altus Esports or someone else mixing it amongst with the big boys. But nevertheless, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen, and hopefully this does indeed spark some interest to going towards the Road to Pro series. Fingers
crossed indeed. We would love to see it, and I do get harassed working on the Coca-Cola broadcast for being the only Aussie involved in it, and I'm sitting there clicking buttons, so it's a little disappointing. It'd be great to have an Aussie or a Kiwi racing in that series. Of course, I've had yourself included, Cam, running in the dirt oval stuff for pro, but never on the road side, so fingers crossed we do see that. The only series in iRacing World Championships that we haven't had someone from our side of the globe racing in. Drivers had just finished their drivers briefing and just getting a couple of laps in before we get this show on the road, and we will run through our starting grid for race number 1. Braden Bullos is going to start from pole, the only driver to break the 40-second bracket. He'll start alongside his teammate of Matt Danson. Ryan Jones will start in 3rd position alongside Bo Albert. Byron Phillips in 5th position. 6th for Daniel Stevens. We go over the page to Matty Jones for Drop Bear alongside Dave Trevathan, and then Caleb Hides and Daniel Yeaman rounding out the top 10. Justin Howe and Brady Baldwin round out the top 12.
Then you go over the page to row 7 for Bradley Wingard and Jason Markowski, followed by Sam Stride on the next row with Tim Cornt. And then you go to Simon Mazzomo and Tom Wilkinson on row 9. Matthew Kefford and Colin Bruns rounding out the top 20 on row 10. And then finishing the field off will be Peter Wilkinson and Jackson Barry.
We're hearing that some drivers are getting end-of-line penalties as well for infringements in qualifying, those being the Altus Esport guys. Interesting to then see them guys drop all the way to the back as we're about to get underway. It's going to be interesting to watching these guys drop all the way to the back and seeing Altus from the rear of the field working their way through. It means that Ryan Jones is technically going to start from the front.
Yeah, he certainly is going to be starting from the front on pole position to be exact, and probably the only time he's going to be starting on pole, but nevertheless.
He's here listening to you too, say that.
Yeah, no, he is. Just giving a wind up. But yeah, certainly it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen off the start and how these Altus boys are going to come through the field, how quickly they're going to be able to advance their way on forward and make up positions over the course of the 65 laps. And it'll be interesting to see how they use the strategy to their advantage as well, with the fact that they're starting down the back.
And we've got a few drivers joining us on Zoom tonight as well. One of them is now starting on the front row. That driver being, hang on, let me click the right button. There we go. What an amateur I am. Daniel Stevens, starting from position number 2 now. You can see right alongside Ryan Jones for this 65 lap race, starting at the front. We'll be happy to see those Altus guys get those penalties and drop all the way to the back. Now, we'll have a little bit of a clean run at the start.
Yeah, you certainly will have a bit of a clean start. You won't have to worry about them for at least the first half of the race, maybe the first quarter. We'll have to see how quick they come through. But he's at least going to have a front row start, is Daniel Stevens, and he can have a nice bit of clean track in front of him if he can get the jump on Ryan Jones. But not too far away from going green flag. The pace car is in. Ryan Jones is going to lead them to the green flag, and he is going to wait as long as he possibly can until that green flag drops, and we are racing.
Yeah, and look at there, the 85 there of Daniel Yeaman absolutely lit up the rears. And speaking of lighting up the rears, there's contact between the 29 there of Jason Markowski, and he's got heaps of damage to the side of the car, side of the truck, but they continue on. I think it was Tom Wilkinson that he made contact with there, but everyone has got through, and we stay green. We're through turn 2.
Yeah, so far so good for the first 2 corners. Looking up the inside is going to be Byron Phillips, on Daniel Stevens. They're going to be 3 wide on the way into turn number 3, but he's going to have to back out of it in the end and not carry the momentum. Someone getting loose in at the background. Trevathan nearly losing the rear end, and both the cars are going to go by, and that's a big crash in the background.
Yeah, who's involved in that one? Bo Albert, Jackson Barry involved in that one. Jackson Barry bringing it down the lane. Tim Corn involved, and we stay green. No caution for that incident there. As Stevens, Phillips, all try and battle it all along here. Already coming through the field, Matt Danson is up into 10th position. Braden Bullos into 8th, but here comes Stevens to try and steal the lead away.
Yeah, those Altus boys are certainly making their way forward very, very quickly. But Stevens on the low side and Jones on the high side, and he's going to have the momentum on his side being up on the high side. But Stevens going to have the slightly shorter run on the way down the front straight and down towards turn number 1. 8,000 separating the two on the way across the start-finish line. But Stevens continuing to run the bottom side of the racetrack, and Jones continuing to run the top side. They're side by side on the way out of turns 1 and 2. They're still going to be side by side and equal on the way down the back straight. This is very, very close between these two, and Byron Phillips is just chilling in the background.
Yeah, Phillips is just happy and content watching these two fight. Interesting that the high line from Ryan Jones there isn't as slow as you would expect with being so early in the race. Just look at the beautiful switchback move. They get across the line side by side again. I think that's that 19 thousandths of a second that time by So absolutely nothing between it. And Daniel Yeaman sticking with these guys too. Broken a little bit of a gap, about 2 or 3 car lengths back to Justin Howe and Brady Baldwin side by side. No strangers to each other from Pro Truck Showdown. And look there, the 0-1, Braden Boulos getting in there as well.
Yeah, Boulos looking to make a move up the inside of Baldwin on the way into turn number 1. Dancer's possibly going to get a move it done as well, but they're all checking up just in front of them as Byron Phillips slowing up a little bit, and that's checked the rest of them up. Boulos slotting in front of Brady Baldwin, so that's going to be position gain there, and they're nearly going to be 3 or so wide on the way down the front straight with Simon Mazzomo and Matty Jones involved in there as well as Matt Danson, and they're all trying to sort themselves out in some form, but everybody just being a little bit cautious and so loose. Brady Baldwin's going to be in the fence big.
And there's a caution out. Brady Baldwin in the wall. And I thought that when I saw Braden Boulos save that, I thought that, oh, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. But Brady Baldwin, unfortunately, in the fence. And he will have to use that spare car early, unfortunately. Pick it up on the VRS replay. And it's just a little bit of contact there from the 8 of Matty Jones into the back. Braden Boulos. And then he just almost plowed his way through the car of Brady Baldwin. Brady did a good job to, well, sorry, I should say Matty Jones did a good job to not make contact with anyone else. And surprising that no one actually hit Brady Baldwin when he was spinning there. He could have very easily cleaned up 2 or 3 more cars.
Yeah, very lucky. And the way that the speed he hit the wall at really could have bounced him further out, but luckily he didn't bounce it too far and everybody else was able to get down to the low side and get on through the incident without too much issues. So going to be only 1 casualty out of that wreck, unfortunately, being Brady Baldwin. A few wounded cars, obviously, from early on and as well as from the contact that will spark that caution as well. So we'll see if anybody decides to come down onto the lane at this time by and get repairs done. We'll see if anybody decides to come down onto the lane and get tyres as well, although only 5 laps in, I don't think you'd really want to bother using a set of your tyres already.
I believe that Tim Corn should be the lucky dog as well, so he should get a wave around past the pace car. Actually, it might be Jackson Barry who will be the lucky dog here. So for those who are unaware, the lucky dog is the leading driver a lap down. Will get waved by the pace car under caution to get a lap back. So a big advantage if you are hurting a little bit. Gives you some incentive to keep pushing on and get your lap back and get yourself back into position, because cautions can bring you back into races very, very quickly and easily. As Justin Howe comes in and gets that damage he had on his truck from the start of the race. So it wasn't Tom Wilkinson, it was Justin Howe that made contact with the car of Jason Markowski. Markowski looks like he might have got away with that okay. There's a little bit of damage, but he's decided to just keep out on track rather than come in and see if he needs to get any damage fixed.
Front a little bit worse wear at the moment on Markowski's car, but doesn't look like it's too severe compared to what Howe had. So it's going to be hopefully not too bad for him for the rest of the race, and he should probably be able to get that done as the race progresses on. But nevertheless, this restart is going to be very, very interesting. It's been very close between Jones, Phillips, and also Stevens at the front of the field, and anybody's guess as to what's going to happen. But Daniel Yeaman and also Matty Jones just sitting in behind, and so is Boulos as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on Boulos and see if he can make his way on through to the front of the field, with the fact that he's only got 5 cars in front of him now.
And I can confirm it was Jackson Barry who did get the lucky dog. He's back on the lead lap. Tim Corn still 2 laps down from that incident we saw earlier on with he and Bo Albert. Brady Baldwin has got his damage fixed and has got back out there, but he will drop to the end of the line because he pit into a closed pit. Of course, you can't pit as soon as the caution comes out. You need to wait a lap for the field to compress. You are familiar with how iRacing works. That's exactly the same as what happens on road courses when we throw the iRacing caution. That's why you see that system, because it's designed for oval racing.
So we get to see the day that we get actual...
One day, hopefully.
One day we're going to get road safety car procedures, hopefully at some point, #soon. But nevertheless, it's a very, very simple way of doing cautions. It does take its time on road courses, but on the ovals it works as well as it should, really.
Yeah, it's does work quite well. There's some tracks that it seems to take a little bit too long, and the longer circuits like Pocono and Daytona, but around a decent length track like this, you're only under caution for 3 laps. The lap times are about 1.5 minutes or so, so it's not too bad. It doesn't take too long to get cautions. Of course, as we said, we are time certain at 50 minutes, and at the moment we look like we should be okay, but if we get maybe 3 or 4 cautions, then we are starting to look at getting into time certain. We do also have NASCAR overtime, or green-white checkers. We can run up to 3 of those. But we'll talk about that if we get to that situation later on, or if we get under caution, and we can talk about it. But leading this field away when we get the restart right now is going to be Daniel Stevens and Ryan Jones alongside. Guys that are important to focus on, Boulos and Danson. They're not far behind now. You can see those yellow/orange and blue Altus Esports trucks not that far behind. We get to the restart zone, green flag flies, and a nice launch there from the front. But Boulos, have a look at that beautiful launch that he got. He's going to cut right down quickly, but Byron Phillips sees him coming and decides to cover that lane off. Daniel Yeaman, though, going 3 wide into turn 1. I don't know if that's the right move at this stage of the race.
Yeah, it's probably not quite the move you want to be making, but they're 2x2 on the way down the back straight. And in the background there is Simon Mazzomo out of absolutely nowhere as well. He's managed to find himself in the battle for what is effectively the race lead. And Stevens is going to be holding on as Markowski's in the wall, severely getting a little bit of airtime over the grass mound where the pavement meets the grass. But at the front of the field, there's still 2x2 at the moment. The Altus pair trying to find their way on through, and Byron Phelps getting a little bit of a bump draft from Bullis on the way down at the front straight. Mazzomo is going to be on the outside of Phillips trying to follow Yeaman on through. And meanwhile, Daniel Stevens is starting to check out a little bit from Ryan Jones.
And here we are on board with Matt Danton. You can see how much the track narrows up at the exit of 2. It almost is, it's not almost deceptive. It is deceptive. The exit of turn 2, it does catch a lot of drivers out. And we may see some incidents at that corner throughout the race with turn 2 exit, catching drivers out, getting on the power a little bit early, but 3 wide across the start line. Finish our 10th lap of this series, the Stock Car Racing Asia Pacific Series. Scrap is green. And what a scrap we're having here for the lead of the race. This battle at the front is great.
Yeah, it certainly is great. Mazzomo's found his way on past Daniel Yeaman, who's slow on the back straight.
I think he clipped the wall.
Clipped the wall on the way out of turn 1. Bullis is going to fly on by, and here comes Matty Jones up the inside of him as well, and might find Sam Stride's going to get on by as well, but he's going to draw up alongside at the moment. It's a little bit chaotic just outside at the top 5. Is there going to be 3 wide in the background on the way down the start-finish straight? And it's really going to be all about who's going to be able to do what. Is one in the wall there. I think that was Yeaman again, just brushing at the wall. Matt Jones, sorry, but everybody starting to work out that the top line is actually really, really good at the moment.
Yeah, the line at the top, as you said, it is quite good. It's deceptively good. Running a little bit higher here. So you don't want to run it right down to the white line. You want to be up a lane. It's sort of not quite. So you see here Sam Stride in the 42. Probably a little bit too low through 3 and 4. Running the halfway up that seam would be a little bit smarter for him, because you can see the run that Yeaman's got on the outside. Look at the damage he's got to the right-hand side of that truck. We're not at Darlington, but he's got the stripe on the side of the truck. At the front, though, Stridey, again, too low. Need to get up a bit higher, mate. Jump up the track a little bit more. At the front, Stevens is doing a great job of holding that position from Ryan Jones. Matt Danson also is now into 3rd place. But as you said, Mazzomo doing a great job, and he's battling with Braden Boulos. And just behind, Bo Albert and Byron Phillips side by side. This is a really cool 4-car battle here for 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's a little bit of biff and barge going on between them. 3 wide on the way down the front straight between Phillips, Albert and Mazzomo. Who's going to be able to come out of this in front? Mazzomo is going to be right up against the outside wall. Decides to think better of it and just slot in behind. But Albert trying to slide up in front of Byron Phillips is just going to be able to do it. Mazoma's got a head of steam coming up behind Phillips as well. He's going to look to the inside on the way into turn 3, or is he going to decide to back out of it? We'll have a look. He's going to send it up the inside on the way into turn 3 regardless. Try and get a move on Byron Phillips, but Phillips going to have a slight bit more momentum running that slightly higher line, but he's going to still be side by side on the way out of turn 4, but decides to slot back in behind.
Yep. Just content to sit there and watch at the moment. Speaking of sitting there and watching, look at the eyes on Bo Albert. He's just happy sitting there watching, waiting, and watching his teammate. Actually looking there at the back of Braden Bulloff's. A little bit of damage to the right rear.
Yeah, it appears to be a little bit of rear right damage on the rear bumper of it, that Altus Silverado by the looks of it, so might be hampering him a little bit in a straight line, but hopefully not too much, as Danson's up the inside of Stevens on the way out of turn at number 4. Stevens trying to keep a run on it, Danson, as they approach the start-finish line and approach turn 1, and Stevens might just be able to hang on to this around the outside on the way through turns 1 and 2, but Danson's just going to have slightly more pace and a slight advantage on the exit of the corner, and he's going to take second place off Daniel Stevens, and Stevens is going to have to be a little bit careful here because he's got Bullis behind him as well as Bo Albert, and Stevens starting to use the draft a little bit to get to the back of Matt Danson, but not going to be making a move into turn 3 this time.
I think he'll just sit there and watch and wait, and one thing they need to be careful of is not burning the tyres up too much. Sure, we're only 16 laps into the race, but these tyres aren't designed to last double stints, not designed to last more than 45, 50 laps of racing. So at this point already, they may be down to 80, 70% of tyre wear. So the pace has dropped by about half a second from what we saw at the start of the race. And now they'll be starting to worry about the tyre conservation and thinking about when do they want to make this green flag stop, because with the way the field's spread out, at the moment it looks like we may be doing green flag stops, which I don't think anyone would have expected for round 0.
It'll be interesting to see what happens as Jones is in the wall on the exit of turn 3, or in the middle of turn 3 and 4, and he's going to lose a massive amount of pace. Mazoma is going to blow on by him, and he might even have Phillips and Baldwin getting on by him on the way into turn 1 as well. So he's going to actually lose a ton of positions out of that. He got a little bit loose by the sounds of it on the way into turns 3 and 4, so that's really hampered him massively, and that's allowed the 3 Altus drivers to just check out to the front of the field. But Baldwin struggling to hold on to the car there. He's being right on the bumper of Byron Phillips, and Jones going to send it to the inside of Baldwin on the way into turn 3, and he's going to try and make it happen, but not quite going to be able to get it done.
In the background too, saw Justin Howe hit the wall at the exit of turn 2, exactly as I talked about before. That exit creeps up on you very, very quickly, and can hurt you if you do tackle that wrong. The battle for the lead is now changing again. Bo Albert's taken the lead away from his teammates. This isn't right, because the road driver that drives on dirt is leading the 2 guys that are well known as being oval specialists.
Yeah, there's something not quite right there, and I'm still trying to work out what the reason for them letting Bo on by is. But
let him burn
nevertheless,
the tyres up, maybe.
Bullis, yeah, there's some reason, but Bullis is going to be getting on by Matt Danson, who's going to slot in behind, and look to see what's going to happen as Peter Wilkinson also having his hands full, and certainly is having fun with a bit of a smile behind that face, but it's certainly all going on further back in the field at the moment as they're all trying to make their way through the field. Matty Jones going to get around the outside of him, and he's going to have a massive run on everybody else on the way out of turn 2. He's even going to get Justin Howe, and he might be able to close up to the back of Trevathan here.
He's just come out of the pits. Remember, we saw him with that damage earlier. He's just taken his spare car and back out there on fresh tyres. So this is the advantage that fresh tyres will have once we see the drivers pit. Of course, they don't want to pit too early. He's gone a lap down. He's the first car 1 lap down as well, so he will be in the lucky dog position if a caution was to come. But new tyre advantage is huge in these things, but you're limited in the amount of sets you have. You don't want to go and burn them up too quickly.
You certainly don't want to be burning them up too quickly, and the
Oh,
amount of
Howie.
passing that he's doing. Oh, now he's in the wall, and that's going to be Stevens into him as well. How we're not under caution, I'm not exactly sure, but he's off the racetrack, so we're going to stay green at the moment. Not quite sure what's happened there, but Stevens is going to be certainly hurting out of that. Colin Bruin, sorry.
Colin Bruns, who has had some tech issues and took him a little bit to get in the server. I think we were a little bit lucky in regards to not getting a caution there because how he dropped down below the yellow, below the white line before anyone was close by. Battle for 5th and 6th, quite good as well at the moment. Brady Baldwin versus Simon Mazzoma. You can see the smoke there from Howie and from Bruns as they come down towards the pits. As we hit 1/3 race distance already, 22 gone. Under 44 to go, 43 and a bit to go. Race is going by at a decent rate of knots. It's been a very, very competitive race, but no surprise to see the Altus drivers at the front. That will change once we get into the season proper because we're going to see the likes of Jason Marcossi have a bit better of a run. We're going to see the likes of Jason Martin in our season proper. We're going to have a real competitive season once we actually get into the real deal starting next week.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be a lot of variables getting thrown their way in terms of the Altus drivers and not having it quite as easy as they have it tonight as Mazzomo looked up the inside of Baldwin on the way into turn 3. And Baldwin's going to stay to the high side and have a slight bit of momentum as a result. And Mazzomo's just going to have to slot in behind the bottom side, working kind of, but not to the amount that some of these guys will have been hoping. It's making passing a little bit more difficult, but at the same time, some of these guys do have to look after their tyres a little bit, and running high seems to be helping some of them at the moment.
And pit window is basically open
Baldwin
from, Baldwin in the wall, and Mazzomo almost followed him in there too. Pit window is open from now, so you probably can pit and make it home on a tank of fuel, but I don't think fuel's the thing you need to worry about. It's tyres. This is the big issue. You need to hold on to them because they will burn up quite quickly. The track temp is not ridiculous. What is it, 26 degrees? But this is a very abrasive track, so making sure that you hold on to the tyres is very, very key. As Ryan Jones has probably heard me listening over my shoulder, he's decided that now's the time to bring it in, fuel it up, and hopefully he'll be the lead car one lap down and hope for that caution, come back through the field.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the undercut is going to work for him as this race goes on. Like you said, he is going to go one lap down, so that's not necessarily going to be a good thing, especially if a caution comes out. He will get the lucky dog, but at the same time, he's going to have a lot of work ahead of him to get back through the field, especially with the fact that if a caution comes out, everybody else is going to come down onto the lane and put new tyres on him. They're going to have a slight advantage and a few laps over him, but nevertheless, back here, Peter Wilkinson working his way forward at the moment, currently P11 and started 21st, so he's made quite a few gains over the course of this race so far. Obviously, a few drivers have pitted it already, but nevertheless, he's not doing it too bad of a job at the moment and is looking to try and catch up to Trevathan and also Caleb Hydes.
There you see Ryan Jones just coming out of the pits. He will drop in behind for a second and probably scoot straight on back through turns 3 and 4. Here he goes. So, Peter doing a very, very good job, and pick up another one of our drivers who is joining us on Zoom. Bradley Wingard. Self-proclaimed horrible oval driver. He said that himself, not me. But out there having a go and actually isn't doing too bad. His truck looks clean. He looks comfortable. So doing everything he needs to at the moment. Just push on and try and fight to hold on to the truck and make sure you don't lose too many spots. As I'm just seeing Byron Phillips losing a couple of spots. He may be looking to come into the pits here.
Yeah, might be trying to come on in, but it doesn't look like he is. Not quite sure what happened to him. He might have gotten to the wall on the exit of turn 2, but not entirely sure. He's lost a bit of momentum as a result, and he's going to have a few drivers blowing on it by him. Jackson Barry being one of them, and Ryan Jones has checked out as well, but Phillips trying to find a way on by Barry at the moment down the back straight, but not going to be happening.
What is happening though at the moment is Mizomo back past Daniel Stevens to take 4th position away in this race. So 4th now for Mizomo, 5th for Daniel Stevens. But at the front, Bo Albert, he's broken away a decent lead. Matt Danson has dropped a long way back from these guys. But these two now have a 3 and a bit second lead over the 3rd place car of Matt Danson.
Yeah, really pulled quite the gap on Matt Danson at the moment, who's sort of dropped away quite a lot over the last few laps. He's not really done actually quick lap times in relation to them. He's been doing 43s and 42s and mid 41s as well, whereas those at the front have been doing low to mid 41s consistently. So not quite sure what Matt's strategy is here. Maybe he's just trying to work out what the tyres are going to be like and being a little bit of a guinea pig for Bo and Braden, but nevertheless he's got Simon Mizomo closing up on him on a hell of a rate.
Seeing that Sam Strides decided to call it a race, he's unfortunately out. Justin Howe also appears to be out of the race as Tom Wilkinson is in the lane. He's getting his pit stop done by the looks of it. Getting a bit of damage fixed as well because he's stopped there for quite a long time. But Danson, I can't see any damage on his truck. But Mizomo and Stevens look to be a lot quicker than him at the moment.
Well, there is a little bit of right rear bumper quarter damage as well on Danson's car, apparently. So might be a little bit hampered in a straight line, but you wouldn't think it would be that terribly much based on the fact that he's still running reasonable lap times at the moment.
I can see that rear spoiler a little bit crinkled, isn't it? So we'll wait and see as we approach the halfway point of round 0. This is Scrap, the Stock Car Racing Asia Pacific Series. Brand new series presented by SimSpeed TV and our friends at Aussie Online Gaming. Joint venture between the two groups to bring a bit more high profile to oval racing in Oz and Z. So much so that we're getting international rings. That's Braden Boulos now leading the race.
Yeah, and it's not every day you attract some guys who are in contention for possibly getting a seat in the Coca-Cola iRacing series down the road as well. So certainly a little bit of, I guess, oval royalty on track out there. But Daniel Stevens still continuing to pressure the back end of Simon Mizomo. And it dropped in behind quite some laps ago. So I'm wondering if maybe Mizomo has burnt up his tyres a little bit too much. We'll have to see what's going to happen here. But Stevens, no stranger to oval racing and no stranger to knowing how to make the strategy work in his favour on ovals as well. So he'll definitely be playing it smart and trying to work with Simon here to make sure that he doesn't lose too much time to Danson and co.
One thing we hope, though, from this is that Daniel Stevens doesn't put sausage rolls on this truck, because the amount that he's got on that pro truck for every rollover he's had has become quite an extreme amount. So thankfully there's none on this one, and fingers crossed it stays that way for the entirety of this season. I say the new look for the MFR cars and trucks is pretty cool as well, with that purple and day glow yellow or green. Whatever colour you decide it is, they're both the same.
And a little bit of lightning thrown in there as well to spice it up to make it cool. A little bit cool. I'm actually a little bit jealous that I'm not able to run something as out there as that, but nevertheless, it's certainly going to be a standout livery for the entire season. But still continuing to just sit in behind Mizomo. They're running about the same sort of pace as what the leaders are at the moment as well. Not too far off, but just ever so slightly off. So interesting to see how they're going to work together and how they're going to be able to find a way on by Danson as well.
Can't quite see well enough on Dan's screen there to see how many laps left until he has to pit. But we can't be far away from green flag stops. 30 laps to go when they cross the line next time by. For a 65 lap race. So we're past the halfway point already. And this race is going by at a decent pace too. Of course, we've had that early caution, but other than that, we've had nothing. Jackson Barry's in the pits. Decide to take his tyre stop and fuel. But at the front of the field, they're continuing on with 30 laps to go.
Yeah, everybody probably going to want to try and go as long as they possibly can. A few of these guys as well going to be able to go a little bit longer. The likes of Bo Albert probably going to be able to go a few more laps than someone like Brandon Bullis. So it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen there as Caleb Hydes comes down onto the lane to get his pit stop out of the lane. Same with Phillips, who probably is going to want to get that spare car used to, or at least get some damage fixed. But we'll have to see how they're gonna play the strategy and where they're going to end up coming out. But still very, very close between Mazomo and Stevens. And they've actually started to put a little bit of pressure on the back of it. Matt Danson, who still continues to run around out there despite carrying that slight bit of damage on that right rear quarter panel. But nevertheless, we'll see how it's going to end up impacting him as this race goes on.
Matty Jones comes into the pits. Of course, they can run around about 38 to 40 laps under green. Of course, we saw the caution at the start. So it may be thinking we get to 42, 43. That could be why we've seen the change of position between Bo Albert and Braden Bullos, as well as Bullos was saving fuel at the start. Now Bo's saving fuel in this next phase. You never know what they're doing strategy-wise. Interesting, though, you just see Brady Baldwin missed his pit box, reversed, and then reversed too far. Gonna have a second attempt. I think he needs to fix up that number on his pit board as well, as Matt Danson continues on. Braden Bullos, Bo Albert decide to come into the pits.
Yeah, and same with Mazomo and Daniel Stevens also coming down onto the lane at this time by. Interesting that Danson has decided to carry on as well with the fact that he's got that damage. So lap time wise, it's going to be interesting to see where he pops out in relation to Mazomo. And it's Stevens, Wingard and Yeeman getting very, very crossed up in the background on the way into the lane as well. So they're getting their pit stop out of the way. But a few more drivers deciding an overcut seems to be the way to go, as it's going to be very, very close between these two. Bo Albert's still going to come out behind Bullis, and Mazomo's actually have jumped Stevens by quite some margin as well. So very, very interesting how that's all played out. Ryan Jones, though, coming out of turn 2, and he has jumped both of the leaders with that undercut strategy that he's done.
The only issue he's got now, though, is his tyres are, what, 15 odd laps old. And the guys behind on brand newies. So he's hoping right now that there's a caution, or maybe in like 5 laps. But he'll try and defend this position as much as he can. Matt Danson's come in, Dave Trevathan in as well as Peter Wilkinson. So everyone has made a pit stop. We'll see where Danson comes out in relation to our leaders in that group of Mazomo, Stevens as well. Danson away. And Mazomo, I'm going to think, may jump him just based on the fact that Mazomo's had 1 extra lap on fresh tyres. Speaking of fresh tyres, Ryan Jones, unfortunately for him, can't match these guys on fresh ones. Those good years of Ryan Jones just not quite good enough to hold on at 15 laps old.
Yeah, they haven't gone quite a full year, but they've certainly had a good year so far, as that was a little bit loose from the Altus driver of Matt Danson there coming.
It was a huge wiggle through.
The start finish straight and nearly lost the rear end. So those tyres are certainly going to be starting to hurt a little bit and trying to use that overcut strategy to his advantage. Undercut versus overcut, sorry, compared to Simon Mazomo, who didn't quite manage to jump Matt Danson, but still very much pushing as hard as he can at the moment to try and catch up to the likes of Ryan Jones and that.
As we said, everyone has now pitted, and Boulos now with 25 to go when he crosses the line. We'll be starting to work out what he wants to do in regards to pace-wise. Does he manage this race pace-wise by just holding Bo Albert just behind him, or does he try and break away and hope that he's got enough tyres to last? Interesting too, he didn't use his spare car there, so you can still see he's got that little bit of damage in the rear wing, same as the truck of Matt Danson had earlier. Danson also has not got his fix, so those guys continuing on with that damage. Bo Albert, you can see, to compare the damage, that rear wing is straight. Rear splitter, I should say.
Yes.
Can't really call it a wing, can we?
I guess you could call it a spoiler if you want to be technical about it.
It's a bit of plastic, fiberglass, plastic, something that sticks up in the air. Amazing how much downforce they actually generate from that one little bit sticking up straight in the air too. See in the background there, that's Matty Jones, who's been lapped. Here's the lead car 1 lap down. If a caution does come out, he will get back on the lead lap, provided he doesn't get involved in the wreck. Matt Danson gets past Ryan Jones to take 3rd position away. Ryan now has Simon Mazzomo coming up, and I must say this will be a little bit of an interesting fight between these two. There'll be a little bit of bragging rights between the final position of these guys.
Yeah, they certainly will, but based on how quick that gap is closing between Mazzomo and Jones, I think it's probably fair to say that Mazzomo is going to have the position over him very, very quickly, and that gap is still continuing to close rapidly as well. And you can see the difference in tyres as well between the two of them, especially through turns 1 and 2 there, which is how much more momentum Mazzomo is able to carry on and how much more pace he's going to have on the way into turns 3 here as he looks to the inside of Ryan Jones, and he's going to get that one done very, very easily.
Because you can see the difference in the time that Mazzomo could put the power down in comparison to Jones as well. Ryan just couldn't get on the power as quick as Simon Mazzomo. That's positional change. Back in the field, Jason Markowski that hasn't had the race go his way at all. Of course, he had to pit out of sequence due to those issues earlier, and has had a horrible start from pretty much the green flag. Of course, he got involved in that incident with, we believe, Justin Howe. Ended up in the grass, and then at the restart ended up in the grass again. So he hasn't had a great start to the night, but of course no points on offer tonight, so that means that you can clear the slate clean and come out with a much happier performance tomorrow, or sorry, next week, when we get the season underway proper at Charlotte next round. 80 laps next week at Charlotte.
In Charlotte, one of those tracks that usually provides some very, very good racing, and one that does also tend to lend itself to being very, very interesting in the strategy department, with the fact that it's not a super speedway like this is, so it's a little bit more technical and requires a little bit more finesse to make sure you're managing your tyres as well as you can. But at the moment, Pato Albert's continuing to pressure his teammate Brandon Bullis at the front for the race lead. We're going to have 21 laps to go this time, by 20 laps to go I should say, but Albert going to look to the outside on the way through turn 1, but not going to be able to get a move it done, just going to sit in behind. And you do have to wonder if Bo is maybe just waiting for an opportunity, just waiting for the tyres to come into their own and just trying to look after them as best as he can so he can get a move done later.
Yeah, I think that's probably what he's trying to do here, is just save the tyres for that last 10 laps, 5 laps. So it's a very, very tight battle here while those guys play the chess game. These guys aren't playing chess, they're playing something a little bit more real right here, right now. This is Brady Baldwin and Peter Wilkinson, Dave Trevathan battle for 9th position. Wilco may lose that spot, drops back to 11th. Nice little move there from the XCM driver, Cross Continental Motorsports, of Dave Trevathan.
How long it was going to have lasted for, we'll have to wait and see, as Wilco might be able to put up a fight, but he's going to look to the inside of Brady Baldwin on the way towards turn 1, and Trevathan's going to end up getting that position. There's a little bit of contact between himself and Baldwin on the way into turn 1 there, and Baldwin's going to end up washing out a little bit, and that's going to let Wilkinson up the inside on the way down the back straight, but Wilkinson just not quite going to get the run that he needed out of turn 2, and Baldwin's just going to hold on to that position for the time being.
It's very, very tight there between those guys too. It was lucky that Brady didn't end up in the fence once again. Of course, he did get put in the fence in race early in the race to bring out our only caution so far in this one. Ryan Jones has lost another position to Daniel Stevens and now has Byron Phillips around about 4.5 seconds back. But the pace difference is quite large, and Jackson Barry is having some issues too. I believe he's hit the wall on that last lap because he is having a lot of trouble. Last lap by was around about 2.5 seconds slower than our lead group, and there is a bit of damage to the right front of that truck.
He's certainly lacking quite a bit of pace at the moment with that damage on that right front as well. He's really being hampered in a straight line. As you can see, Wilco just blowing on by him on the top side of the racetrack. Really has no way to defend positions at the moment with that sort of minor damage that's hampering him in a straight line. But he's going to try and send one up the inside on the way into turn 1 on Wilco. But Wilco is going to drive it straight back underneath him on the exit of turn 2. And Barry is going to be left helpless in a straight line once again, displaying a little bit of draft from Brady Bowen. Wilco is going to get to the inside and get that position with relative ease, as he's going to look to get up the inside, and he's going to get that one possibly, but it's looking like it's going to be in his favour.
It's a great fight between these guys. At the moment, Wilco's got it. Peter Wilkinson holding on to position number 10. This is the battle for the top 10. Jackson Barry now back up to pace, but you can see that little bit of damage that almost looks like the front right fender is actually touching the tyre, so that could be causing some issues, especially if it is rubbing, because it will hyperheat the tyre a little bit later on in the race too. So needs to be a little bit careful about that one. Keep an eye on it, maybe not push too hard, and sometimes just dropping back in behind, not a bad thing when you've got that sort of damage. Help to control the truck a little bit, and especially with 15 to go. Last thing you want to do is blow a tyre right now.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to be running into troubles at this point in the race, especially when you're on for a pretty reasonable result at the moment. Wilco sitting in the top 10 at the moment and trying to make it the top 9 if he can get on by Bullwin. Looking like he might just be able to do it and sneak it up the inside on the way into turn 3. Gets a nice little run on the exit of turn 2 and is nearly going to drop alongside Baldwin on the way down the backstroke. Just not quite going to be able to do it in the end, and it's going to have to sit in it behind for the time being.
Or is he? Or is he going to have to sit in behind? Going to throw it back up the inside through 3 and 4. They're going to go side by side across the start line. Baldwin will have the slight advantage, but they're going to continue this fight the whole way through the lap. So one thing I love about this circuit is something that you can't unsee. You know what I'm talking about, Cam. You come out of this corner here, you look at the trees.
The old elephant tree.
The old elephant trees. With its trunk up in the air, you can't unsee it once you see the elephant trees. My favourite thing about this circuit, always distracted me and caused me to go in the wall, because I'd always look and try not to see an elephant, and all I could see was an elephant in those trees.
Yeah, once you've seen it, you certainly can't unsee it. I've done enough laps around this track to see it on my own without you even telling me about it, and I've gone, yeah, look, that's going to be the wall, and my right front will thank you for that.
It's worse when you've gone fresh tyres, because you're pushing so hard to try and get good laps in, and all you can see is this tree, or this group of 3 trees off to the side. Just catches your eye right here. You can just see the top of the tree looks like an elephant's trunk sitting up in the air, and the tree just, for some reason, it's nothing like an elephant from any angle other than the angle sitting in the cockpit driving at 300 k's an hour through that turn. It's the only way it looks like that.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't look that way when you look at it from a TV camera or spectator point of view, but it does when you're in the car. Just probably down to how low you sit and how it looks from the angle of the banking as well.
Yeah, the slight angle that you're sitting on when you're on the banking is Ryan Jones has just been passed by Byron Phillips. Sad this track is now a legacy circuit. Of course, the scan has been updated. They've changed the safer barriers, added in some extra safer barriers in this circuit in real life, and much better for it in that way. But the rescan also included a complete asphalt rebuild as well, so a lot smoother on the modern circuit, the newer circuit. So when we get to this circuit in a season proper, I don't think we come to Michigan in this season, in the actual season, but this track does provide some great racing, and one of the drivers' favourites. It's a very, very polarising track though. Drivers think that this is the best track out there, or it's in their bottom 5 list. There's no in between for drivers.
Yeah, it's certainly a really, really good track to race on. It doesn't matter if it's stock car or IndyCar or anything like that. It just seems to produce some really, really good racing every time out, whether it's in the IndyCar, Silver Crown, Sprint Car, doesn't matter. It just seems to put on really, really good racing and probably down to just the character of the track, with the fact that you've got that bottom line, which is really, really quick to begin with, but then that top side can have its advantages with the momentum that it provides, and also just saving the tires as well. So it adds two elements of racing it to what's going on, and really can spice things up a lot.
10 laps to go in this race. Braden Boulos, Bo Albert, Matt Danson, our top three at the moment, all from Logitech G Altus Esports team. And Simon Mazzomo holding 4th position at the moment, but Daniel Stevens is coming for him. This has been brewing over the last few laps. Each lap, Stevens is pulling, what, maybe a tenth and a half. And that gap is just closing. It's now down to 3/10. And Stevens just looks that tiny little bit stronger. These guys are on identical tyre lives. They're both on 20-lap-old tyres. So tyres aren't the key here. It's about how much they've pushed those tyres rather than the actual age of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Is you don't want to push them too hard and got them to overheat and then wear even quicker than they normally would wear. So if you've used your tyres up before here, you're going to be in a real world of hurt, and you're really going to struggle to hold off any sort of positions at this stage. And at the moment, it looks like Mazzomo might have just hurt the tyres a tiny bit too much, because Stevens is now all over the back of Mazzomo at this point. And with 8 to go, he's really going to need to make sure he works hard to keep that position.
Definitely going to have to work really hard. Not long left in this race. Around about 5 minutes of racing left in this race. Round 0. We're calling this one. This is our test race for the Stock Car Racing Asia Pacific Truck Series, presented by SimSpeed and Aussie Online Gaming. If you want to be a part of the series, we have pinned the link to register for this championship in the YouTube chat, so please jump over and register if you would like. The series is capped at 40 drivers, but we will have a reserve list that we will get throughout the championship, and make sure that we do see new faces, new drivers, and let everyone get in, and hopefully we can maximize the fields each and every week. Of course, you'll see it all here on SimSpeed TV with myself and Cam joining you throughout the season as well, which I'm looking forward to, because Cam, you and I have missed oval racing on SimSpeed. It's been way too long. I think it's been 3.5 years since we last broadcast an oval series. The fact that we've got oval racing back on SimSpeed TV each and every week excites me quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite some time since we've had a dedicated hosted league on the oval side being broadcasted here on SimSpeed TV. We did an NIS for a little bit with our partnership with Virtual Racing School, but we've unfortunately had to stop that now. We're going to have something back on here that's oval racing related, and with the 5 laps to go, we're about to see how good the series is going to be, because Braden Bullis has got Bo Albert all over his rear end, and Bo is looking to try and make a move here and wanting to get this race victory.
Yeah, he doesn't want to settle for second here. He wants to take the win. 5 to go. We said before, we were sort of thinking maybe 5 to go is the point that he actually looks at going for this. Is the point now where he starts to look at pushing. Of course, we do go time certain after 50 minutes of racing. That is in 5 minutes time. If we get a caution, we could finish under that caution. So drivers that are understanding of that is just seeing Ryan Jones. He can't hold on to the tyres. He's had to come in for another pit stop. So that's unfortunate.
Your fuel numbers were wrong.
Okay, my fuel numbers are wrong. Very good. Good job for me. You shouldn't be listening to me. That's the worst thing you can do, is use me for a crew chief. Lucky it's round 0. Bo Albert now looking to get this move done, though. Braden Boulos is just holding his line, making sure that Bo can't get through.
Yeah, certainly making him work for it is Bullis, and Bullis will have a lot of experience on oval, knowing how to make the other guy behind you work as hard as he possibly can, and use those tyres as much as he possibly can to try and get by you, so that you can have an advantage should the opportunity present itself where they're going to end up being in a real lot of hurt. And that is Peter Wilkinson with a very beaten up truck there for some unknown reason. He's obviously had contact with the wall or someone at some point in the last few laps or so, but with 3 to go, 2.5 pretty much at this point down the back straight, Bo Albert is certainly sizing up Braden Bullis for the win, more than likely on the way into turn 3, I reckon.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think turn 3 is the point that he decides to have a crack at it on the next lap. I don't think he's going to wait for the last lap. I think he has to do it beforehand. But there's no doubt that they're chatting to each other, and judging by the look on Bo's face from looking at the Zoom feed, he's having a little bit of fun with Braden at the moment. They're having a bit of a laugh and a chuckle about what's going on out there. So maybe there might be a punt to pass happen here, because we know how much fun these guys love to have when they're in a teammate battle. When you've got your teammate that you're battling with for the win, especially in a non-point scoring race, we're probably going to see a punt to pass and a turn on the last lap as Mizomo and Stevens continue this fight. Stevens have got through. Mizomo's come back.
Yeah, Massimo
Nice,
just sliding up in front of Daniel Stevens to get that move done, but Stevens is going to have a slight bit more head of steam on the way down the back straight, and into turn 3, he's going to look to the inside on the way there, but Mazomo is going to have the momentum on his side on the top side. It's white flag for the leaders, and it's going to be white flag for these guys this time by, and they're going to be side by side on the way out of turn 4. Mazomo goes to the low side to go defensive on Daniel Stevens, and he's going to go back up to the high side, and he's got a little bit of a buffer between himself and Stevens on the way through turns 1 and 2. It's looking like he might have this at the front. It's going to look like it's going to be Bullis. Bo Albert tries his best, but he's going to be in the wall on the exit of turn 4. And unfortunately, that's going to mean Braden Bullis is going to win round 0 here at Michigan International Speedway. Bo Albert's going to make it at Altus 1-2. Danson's going to come in P3. Who's going to take P4, though, as it's very close between Mizomo and Stevens out of turn 4. Mizomo's going to go low. Stevens looks to the high side and looking like Mizomo's run out of fuel.
Yep. Mizomo may have listened to my fuel numbers as well. He's run just short of fuel right at the line. Daniel Stevens takes that spot. What a fight between those guys. Caleb Hydes and Jackson Barry also crossed the line side by side for position, but congratulations to Braden Boulos. Altus Esports 1, 2, 3. I'm sure next week there'll be a few teams that'll be looking at that and going, we don't want to see that again. Few drivers that'll be looking for redemption when we get into racing proper next week. But Braden Boulos wins round 0 to become the first ever winner of the Scrap Series. And he will come up to do his victory burnout. One cool little thing that we love to see in this sort of racing is the victory burnout post-race. And big congratulations to Braden Boulos on picking up the victory. Of course, end-of-line penalty at the start and had to drop to the back. Worked his way back through to take victory. As we look at our race results from round 0. Boulos in first, Bo Albert, Matt Danson round out the top 3. Daniel Stevens in 4th, Mizomo in 5th with a cough at the line. 6th to Dave Trevathan. Then we got Byron Phillips, Brady Baldwin, and Daniel Yeaman, the last driver on the lead lap. Bradley Wingard picks up position number 10.
And you go over the page to those outside the top 10. Caleb Hydes in 11th, 1 lap down. Barry at 12th. Jones, Kifford, and Markowski round out the top 15. And Markowski, the first driver, up 2 laps down. Matty Jones, Peter Wilkinson, Tim McCourt, and Colin Bruns and Tom Wilkinson to round out the top 20. Tom Wilkinson, unfortunately, a DNF, and then Sam Stride, Justin Howell, also your DNFs to round out the 22-car field.
That is round 0 done, run, and won. As we said, next week we get into the season proper. And we head to a track that's very, very familiar to every single driver on iRacing, and even more so if you are an oval driver. Next week we head to Charlotte Motor Speedway and we go for an 80-lap race. Of course, 80 laps or 50 minutes, whichever comes first. And that will be an action-packed one, Cam. I'm looking forward to it. Charlotte always provides some great racing, but in these trucks, it's going to be absolutely thrilling.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be really, really cool to watch and see what ends up happening when we get to Charlotte for 80 laps around the mile and a bit oval. So looking forward to seeing what's going to happen and who's going to end up taking that one out.
Of course, we'll be racing under lights. Each and every race we can race under lights, we will race under lights. So as part of Scrap, we promised to do as many night races as we could, because it does look cool on the liveries when they are running at night. So we will do that. So that wraps us up for scrap for round 0. As we said, next week we start season proper at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We hope you can join us for round number 1 next week from 9 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time next Wednesday night, straight after Aussie Car Formula V. On behalf of Cameron Dance, I'm Jay Kennedy. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going with the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go.
Oh no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?